Welcome to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast, presented by FantasyGolfBag.com, your number one source for the most in-depth PGA Tour analysis in the daily fantasy and sports betting world. Each week, our experts will discuss everything you need to know, from the course preview and key stats to top plays, fades, and strategies. Whether golf betting, grinding out cash games, or playing for a big GPP win, our team has you covered. Let's get after it.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Golf Bag Podcast. I'm your host, Redkacheek, joined today by Axis, aka Fantasy Jesus, and we are here to preview the Wyndham Championship. I think this is like the last regular tour event, or regular scheduled event for the year before we get into the FedEx Cup playoffs. So not the strongest of fields, but not terrible either. Certainly some strong pricing for some guys we don't normally see, but excited to kind of get rolling here. Be talking through the golf course. Obviously, I have plenty of data, the players, and of course, we'll be kind of previewing a couple of the new stats that we released yesterday at the fantasygolfbag.com. So I'll go ahead and bring in Axis. How's everything going for you, man? You excited to talk some Wyndham and, of course, these new proximity stats?
Yeah, it should be a good week. Like you said, last regular season event before we get to the playoffs. I think the PGA Tour was hoping they would have enticed a deeper field to show up this year with all the money, extra winning, and then Brooks just comes out and says, I don't really give a shit. I can win all my money in these other events and still collect. So I think that kind of backfired, trying to incentivize really rich golfers to show up for like a little bit more money. But I guess it was worth a shot, but still have a pretty solid field. Morikawa going to try to go back-to-back. Wolf and Hovland back in there, so get to watch them for some more golf, which will be nice. More data, the better for these new guys who are just tearing up the fields they're playing in. So I think there's a lot you can watch this week. I mean, it might not be the most exciting course that they're playing, but you can find bits and pieces of entertainment here. And, you got a bunch of guys who will be trying to keep their card, your Martin Keimer and a couple guys like that, some journeymen. So there are some storylines.
Yeah, the pricing was really weird, which we'll certainly get to. But seeing, Webb at 11.2 and you see Jordan Spieth over 10K, that's totally fine. You see some of these 9K guys, and I was shaking my head at, like, what's happening here? Because then when you go down to, like, the mid and low sevens, there's a lot of decent players down there that I don't hate. Like, I feel more uncomfortable rostering some of these 9K guys than rostering where the 7K guys are priced. And in the end, it doesn't matter. You're looking for guys that can finish at the top of the leaderboard, but I don't feel like there's a huge difference besides a couple guys' recent form. I was really surprised. To see Cameron Smith there after like really 2 good weeks, it's a very interesting week for pricing, in my opinion.
Yeah, they definitely gave Cam Smith quite the kick after a pretty average to mediocre season overall.
Yeah, but
there are definitely some guys that I'm sure we'll get to, like Ben Ann and such, that, their price just seems, I don't know, a little low to me, I guess is the best way to put it. I think most of the higher priced guys, like you said, they make sense. Snedeker at 10K, I guess that's just coming in hot.
Yeah.
Course history, 59 here. Like, I don't know. We'll get into that, but the pricing is, there's some gems down there, I think, this week that you can mix in and make actually some pretty good balanced lineups this week.
I'm liking the balanced approach so far, at least first look through the pricing. But what we'll do is we'll go ahead and dive into the golf course. I know everyone's eager to learn more about the extended approach numbers that we dropped to our Fantasy Golf Bag subscribers yesterday. So we'll touch on that kind of throughout the show as we go along. And if there's time at the end, we can kind of give our final thoughts on how we feel like that benefits us so much and how it's been benefiting us. Like last week was a huge one. Just talking about, first off, real quick, shout out to Orange Man, aka Orange Curse. He won, or he didn't win, but he finished pretty strong in the Minimax, I believe. The last couple weeks, we've been starting to add more kind of tutorials and guidelines around MMEing, so max multi-entry tournaments, and he was able to have a decent sweat entering 150 lineups. And I think people are starting to realize, at least in our membership, there's a lot of work that goes into max entering tournaments, more than just, click and optimize for 150. But yeah, shout out to him. And he was 65% on long, which was one guy that I kept going back to last week. In a no-cut event, his proximity numbers, his extended approach numbers, which is what we're now providing to all our members, was off the charts. And he actually was 15th last week in DK points. Like, the way the numbers kind of broke out with how many birdie opportunities he was having. He was 15th, and he was priced he was like 60th, I think, in the list, 59th or something like that, pricing wise. Yeah. So, huge benefit there. Obviously would have loved to have one more really solid round. It would have made, I think, a lot of us a lot of money. But yeah, you can't argue with literally a min price guy finishing 15th on the DK points list.
No, you can't. And like you said, we'll dive into that and kind of explain how Sky and I have been using that as we've been developing and toying with that for the last 10 months or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sounds good. So I'll go ahead and transition, and we'll try to get through this kind of short and sweet, and plenty of other content for us to consume this week. As I was kind of disappointed there wasn't a ton of Fantasy Golf World Championship qualifiers. I was checking last night, there was like one 2K qualifier with like 7 people. And there was no 30, there's still like 10 spots left. So I don't know if maybe they're doing it next week, but I have no clue. I was looking for them to just unload all the extra spots. There should be 10 left, and there was only one qualifier. So, side note, disregard that. Just quick little rant. So the Sedgefield Country Club will be hosting the Wyndham Championship, and this will be the 10th time, I think since 2008 they've been hosting it. Prior to that, it was Forest Oaks Country Club. It's a Donald Ross design, par 70, 7,100 yards, and really just, can I say easy? Because like, you look at some of these winning scores, you got Brandt obviously shot 59 last year, finished at 21 under. Henrik Stenson in 2017, 22 under. Siwoo 21 under, 17 under, 17 under, 14 under, 18 under, 18 under, 20 under. Like, you're going to have a lot of birdies this week. The course difficulty is extremely easy. It's like the bottom 10 on the PGA Tour. Driving distance is up there. Guys are hitting it. We just kind of talked about coming onto the show, but like off the tee, it's so generous. There's not a lot of strokes to be gained off the tee. It's certainly going to be a second shot golf course like we talk about every week. But when you start looking through these numbers, approach stands out as where guys that finish at the top of the leaderboard gained the majority of their strokes. That and putting, if you want to, talk about a golf tournament where people gain strokes putting and win, this would be one of them. Talk about Brandt Snedeker, looking at you, buddy. But yeah, approach shots, all that stuff, it's really pretty average. Like, it's not a hard golf course. It looks like there's a lot of opportunities. The only thing that really stuck out to me was putting. Like, this was historically the top 10 most difficult greens on tour for these guys to putt on. So there's not a lot of ways to quantify that when you're building out your models. I mean, you can add in some type of, strokes gained splits or something like that on Bermuda, but overall, man, I'm looking at green regulation. I'm looking at strokes gained approach, birdie or better. I think it's a very standard week for the most part. And then maybe weighing a little bit of course history, but all the course history guys are priced up. So that may not even benefit me this week.
Yeah, just bring your irons. You can pretty much show up with any driver. Like you said, we've gone back through the history of, the top 20 strokes gained total scores at this course. Only one of them has been a top 10 percentile and off the tee as well. Like, everybody's hitting to the same spots. They're able to get some rollout. It's not that if you're awful off the tee, you're probably still going to struggle, although there are some guys who have been negative off the tee for the week who have had solid finishes, but it's primarily just been irons and putting. So if you're sticking them close, it greatly benefits you. Like you said, the players have had some difficulty on these greens. So if you're sticking it close, you can really gain on the field by knocking down your 10 to 15 footers. So I guess if you're looking at putting, I'd look at long-term numbers, obviously. Just forget anything recent. Just look at a long-term. How is a guy putting over his last I'd look at least 50 rounds, but I'd look at as large a sample as you can, unless you know a guy's been changing his puttering and all that all the time. But then 10 to 15 footers, like if you can gain a few extra strokes there, those are the ones you can knock down a little more regularly than other tour members. You start getting 20 plus, that's just even more variance. So if you're going to mix it in, that's how I'd mix it in. I'm really just looking at my overall model and some of these extended approach numbers that we'll get into as we talk through some of these guys.
Yeah, I just kind of looking back real quick, just look at the leaderboard from last year. Obviously, Brandt, Webb Simpson, CT Pan, Jim Furyk, DA Points made a showing. Ryan Moore, Brian Gay, like the longest hitters don't necessarily have an advantage here. And I think that alludes to the point you made about off the tee. Guys, gaining strokes off the tee doesn't really benefit you very much. You look at those names and it's mostly accurate. I'd say good putters and, iron play is decent. I mean, I would certainly consider Brandt a streaky putter. We saw that last year. Webb could be a very good putter. Brian Gay, obviously, Jim Furyk. So, yeah, I think if I look through my model one more time, I don't think there's anything crazy going on. Again, I'm using weighted birdie or better instead of just birdie or better because you'll get guys that have made a lot of birdies in these easier events of late, and they'll be bumped up your list quite a bit. So definitely use all the weighted stats. Do not use the normal unweighted. And then I think DK points for the year I'm using too, just to try to split off guys. Again, weighted DK points. And I think that's about it, man. It seems pretty straightforward to me, just trying to... It's a weird point in the season as well, where I think we have enough data for the season that a lot of my numbers... I'm bumping back to obviously 10 tournament a little bit, but I'm using a lot of season stats. I don't know if you have any thoughts around that, but a lot of times I like to use more recent form, but I feel like these guys have been playing so many different events. Some guys haven't been playing a ton since like the US Open and the British Open. So I've bumped a lot of my numbers back to seasonal. So I don't know if you have any thoughts around that.
Every week I'm normally at least 50-50 on recent to long, and I tend to lean towards long just because I think that is a truer testament of who a golfer is. So I guess I'd use that as a tie break for some, not that forms are relevant, but I mean, a golfer, they are who we think they are, if you
Absolutely.
want to steal some quotes like it. So yes, the recent form, if you think some guy's peaking or he's about to peak, he's heading that way, he's priced down. Obviously, that's something to look at. But yeah, and especially this time of year, like you said, we have pretty much the full season now worth of data. So I think it'd be stupid to ignore it, especially with how weird the last 5 weeks of the season have been with alternate events, WGCs, the Open, and the weather waves and things like that. We include all those stats. We have all those events in our stats, but at the same time, you have to be careful just with how different some of these events in these fields are.
Yeah, that'd be the only caveat, I guess, is now that we do have the extended approach that are available, that's kind of like my recent form model, if you will. My main model now when I'm running it is going to be longer term. I used to bump up the really recent stuff, like last 5 events, last 2 events, to see if anyone is really the longer term stats have been kind of down and their recent form has been trending up. But now that we have the extended approach, that's what I've been using. And obviously it's been working pretty well, but I feel like that gives me a really good idea without, weighing someone in an overall model by just identifying who may be trending up, in the last couple events. That's kind of how I've been viewing those new stats.
Yeah, you can use them as a buy low as well. I mean, you can find guys who have been putting, 22% of their shots within 12 feet, and if they haven't been finishing, I mean, you can assume then that they can't putt either, but if they've been continuously doing that, or you can look at, on the season, this guy's been putting 22% within 12 feet, but of late, he's only been putting 15, so you can, again, I haven't dove in enough to say what exactly is predictive and what isn't. But I mean, we're giving it out to you you can do your own research on it as well. You know?
Well, I think we're seeing trends now with these guys being consistently good, hitting their approach shots close, but we're still seeing the same trend of Corey Connors can't make a putt. So,
no, he's a perfect example of this. Yeah,
just throwing that out there. The guy, I mean, you can hit as close as you want all day. If you can't make, but 10% of them, you're probably not going to do very well in DFS. So. Let's transition. Let's talk about some DK pricing. Let's move down the list a little bit. Obviously, guys at the top, starting with Webb Simpson, 11-2, Hideki, 10-9, Jordan Spieth at 10-6, who is, I'm sure, hopefully you have some thoughts and you can guide me on that, but what the heck, man? This guy, I wouldn't even say sneaking to good finishes. I wouldn't say they're good finishes, but like he's hanging around and it makes me really uneasy. Like, is this guy just going to show up one week? He's going to be 8% owned and he's going to win someone all the monies. Colin Morikawa at 10-4, Brandt Snedeker at 10K even. I'll lead off with you. Like I said, I do like the balanced approach this week. Webb Simpson, even with as good a course history as he has, statistically in my model, he's at the top of the list, I think, by default. I mean, when you look through this field and you get a world-class player like Webb, he's going to be near the top of your model most likely. You're paying a premium, obviously, at 11-2. A lot of top 10s, obviously one here way back in the day. But I don't know if I can, pay the price for him at 11-2. I feel like I'm giving up some... I don't know if he has the same win equity as if it was... We'll say a Rory in this field at 11-2. Like a Rory in this field, maybe, yeah, I'd go for it. But I don't know. In this 10K range, Morikawa seems really interesting coming back off that win. Obviously has been great. His stats have been off the charts since joining the PGA Tour or playing these events. I don't know. I think they each have a little bit of pros and cons, but it's all about price for me this week. It seems that if I can build balanced, I like those lineups a bit more than trying to catch one of these winners. I don't know if the winner will come from up here too. That's probably my biggest inclination.
Yeah, I'm going to be making a fair amount of lineups this week. If nobody's going to play Webb due to his pricing, I will, because he is 1A, 1B for me in my model this week. Mm-hmm. And the other guy is Morikawa at 10-4. The issue there, and it might not be an issue because he's young and he's still grinding out and he's showing up to this event anyway. So he's coming off his win. Is there going to be any letdown? Is there going to be any relief off his shoulders? He got, I don't know. I try not to guess, I guess, a golfer's psyche like that. So I guess I can only go with the numbers, and the numbers tell me that he's continuing to play. Yeah. I mean, just outstanding golf. So
I will say too, real quick, just to butt in, that I mean, he won an alternate field event. They don't get the same publicity that Matt Wolff got at the 3M. He
won it by 4 strokes too. So if you broke it out outside the Stableford scoring, it wasn't like he tripped across the finish line. He stomped that field.
Oh yeah. So, I'm not worried about the field strength. I'm just saying he won the event, but he's not going to get the same publicity that Matt Wolff got. He's showing up here, and I bet he had 2 interviews. I'm just saying from a mental aspect, he may have felt like he won, but he never got any type of big recognition. So he's coming back here, and now this is a real event, maybe, in his mind. I don't see any lack of motivation for him at this event.
No, like I said, that might be a concern, but it's not going to stop me from using him. He's actually my favorite above 10K just due to the price. Saving $800 from playing Webb, so I'll continue to ride, and I'll say form. I only have 24 rounds for him now from this season, but they've been pretty spectacular. So yeah, I think Morikawa, Webb. I don't really know what to do with Jordan either. I bet him in a couple head-to-heads last week, and I bet against him in a couple head-to-heads. It was kind of the model's very middling on him for me. Mm-hmm. So,
well, I mean, we'll go ahead and
when it comes to DFS, I don't really know what to do with him. honestly. Like I can't tell you for certain today that I will or will not use him this week.
Well, let's
I'd lean
just
towards
say
no.
of the people that played the FedEx Cup, or not the FedEx Cup, the St. Jude last week, he was second worst in the field that of those guys that played. His proximity numbers, his approach numbers suck.
His irons continue to be terrible.
Yes. So no Jordan Spieth. I assume maybe at the price he'll get a lower ownership. So I don't want to count it out. Like, I'm all about if there is an opportunity for a guy that is going to be low owned, and he could win in this field. But statistically, if you guys are like, man, he finished 12th last week, is he trending the right direction? No, he's not. He sucks. Right now, like literally of those guys, which are the best in the world, he was second to last. So keep that in the back of your mind. If you were playing him, it's strictly off ownership. Even course history, he has one showing here, and it was a second. So course history is a limited sample. Don't have that build up too much in your mind. All right, let's hit the 9K range. I'll kind of lead off here. The one guy that seemed, I don't want to say mispriced. I mean, I guess mispriced looking at the guys around him, but Patrick Reed at 9,700, I feel like he is maybe not getting overlooked, but he's been playing so well. Obviously won this event back in 2013. Coming in off the 10th at the British Open, 12th last week, and his irons look good. Tee shots we talked about, not a huge deal, but man, I haven't looked at his extended approach yet. Let me pull that up real quick. Yeah, pretty solid. Almost 9% of his shots inside of 6 feet. Over 50% of his shots, or almost 50% of his shots inside of 24 feet. 40%, sorry. Patrick Reed, man, in this field, at that price, that's the guy that I kept going to in my first builds. I like him a ton. I've been playing him for a while. A guy I'm not a big fan of, so be going there. The other two studs in this range, I don't know if Matthew Wolff is the best fit on this golf course. Obviously, he pounds driver and does a lot, but his buddy, Mr. Victor Hovland's probably going to be the most interesting one for me. I'll be playing a fair share of him. And then the last one I'll touch on in this range, Mr. Billy Horschel. So Horschel was an interesting one for me. His course history is certainly up and down. But when I look back at his showing last year, I think he lost almost 3.5 strokes putting, which isn't a good sign for like good memories on greens. But when you look at his form kind of coming in, I feel like his iron game is in decent shape. And if he came to a course last year that he hit the ball well on, then his sight lines are good. And he lost 3.5 strokes and finished 11th. So I think Billy Horschel's a really interesting one, and I assume will be the lowest owned in this lot. I hope so. If he is going to be the lowest owned, I'll have a fair share. If somehow he gets up to 17%, I'll fade that. But I have to find someone low owned in each range, and that's one guy that stands out to me.
So to touch on Reed quick, he's someone that I don't often play or even try to figure out, although the form is there. In fact, I think almost all these guys in the 9K range have just as good or better form than the guys priced above them, aside from Webb and Morikawa. Mm-hmm. But so on Reed, I guess one thing to look at when you looked at his recent extended approach, when you look at like overall for the season, it's been very average. So that's where I'm trying to determine right now, like, okay, so is he going to regress back to, he normally only hits 4.8% of his shots within 6 feet, and his irons just really haven't been good all year. So it's hard for me to say. Maybe it's near the end of the year, he's figuring it out. I don't know. I mean, how much Reed I'm going to own this week,
his last 4 events, he's gained 6 strokes approach, 2.5, and then 2.
Right.
Sorry, he gained 1 at the Travelers, then 6 at the Rocket Mortgage, 6 at the 3M, and then 2 last week. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the start of the year was so bad that prompted him to switch coaches, and now he's starting to see some benefits. He feels good.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mean, I think he made changes. Like people talk about in baseball, guys have pitching changes and that drastically improves their, fantasy prospects and stuff. I think in golf, guys will make switches, whether it's a putting coach. We hear about that quite often. A short game coach like Molinari switched short game instructors last year and then won the Open. I think Patrick Reed's on the up and up as far as he switched instructors. I think he's getting some confidence now that whatever fixes he made are starting to take place. So I would, in your kind of argument there, the year-long stats I think are not beneficial because he has made, concrete changes, and that's led to the improved approach. I don't think it's just a fluke.
Yeah, that's fair. Again, he's just somebody I tend to. I don't know. I don't really figure him out. I don't play Patrick Reed a lot, so maybe I am passing up solid opportunity here. I have been playing a lot of Horschel this season. I think he's been habitually underpriced. I don't think he's underpriced this week, but I don't know, relatively fair. But wow, 9,600 to play Billy Horschel. I forget what I just played him at in the Open, although he's awful in the Open, so I knew that was coming. But last week, peaked. I don't know. That's, like you said, hopefully no one else wants to play him at that price, and I'll just be on Idiot Island by myself. Hovland, I think, is another guy that I can get back in on. I really don't have a problem playing any of these guys. I like Ches a lot. I think at his price, he might be my favorite value in this range. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I think I much prefer the upper nines to the lower nines.
Yeah, I agree. I think one thing interesting on Horschel, which maybe we can release some of this during the FedEx Cup playoffs as they go, but we've talked about early in the year where guys have played well at certain times of the year or certain parts of the schedule. So like Ches Reavie in that West Coast swing, Charles Howell in the West Coast swing. This was about the time of year last year Horschel kicked it up a notch. So if he's getting into a rhythm with his schedule now, this would be the week that he starts to, it might have been last week maybe, and then this is the week that it just progresses into the FedEx Cup playoffs. Whether he catches a win or not, it's to be determined, but I think a lot of these guys do get into grooves with schedules or they feel comfortable at a certain event, and that leads into it. And this was about that event last year for him.
I mean, he's done it before too when he won them, so.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. So let's go down into the 8K range. So I'll let you lead off here. Not a ton of interest for me. I think there's some guys at the bottom I think would be pretty popular, but no one that really stands out that are must plays for me. So curious your thoughts here in the 8K range.
I am going to probably lose my mind, but I'm going to have a fair amount of Lucas Glover at 8,700.
Dude, you've been all over him. Like, you hate Kokrak, but you've been all over Glover this year.
I don't know. He's consistently been up there, and I think he's been, just compared to this field, the way he's been playing, I think that he should have been in 9-1 salary range. So I bet him as well, but I mean the irons have been that this whole season, his entire game has been positive. That's putting around the green, approach off the tee. Like it hasn't paid off in a sense of a win, but he has had those peak rounds, those deep rounds, those rack up birdie rounds. I think most recently it was at the 3M. He charged to the lead, shot like 9 under. It was either Detroit or it was 3M, one of the two. But
it was a John Deere, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, maybe it was John Deere. Sorry, they're all blending together.
Yeah.
But I think I don't know. It's going to be a long week rostering more Lucas Glover, and hopefully the 2019 Lucas Glover that's been playing pretty solid all year continues to show up at 8,700. I know there's some narrative with Noren, although I don't know what the results last week did. I'm normally not a big narrative guy, so I assume he got some points, decent amount of points last week to get him towards a PGA Tour card. But at 8,800, that's interesting. I was along with Martin Keimer at 8,600, who's been pretty vocal about just really trying to have a resurgence. He made that great push to try to get into the Open and failed, so now it's time to push to get a tour card. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on those, on the upper eights in particular, with CH3, Noren, Glover, Keimer.
No, the one thing I wanted to point out too, using the extended approach numbers, which kind of led to my dead zone discussion or the initial thoughts on this range. The 8K range, including like Charles Howell, who's actually been playing decent, the average procs inside of 12 feet is under 15%. And then like you just jump up to the 9K range and they're at 17.5%. That's why like when you go down the list, this 8K range is just a big red block. And it doesn't really bode well for a course. Even looking at their like recent extended approach numbers, it doesn't bode well for a course that relies so heavily on the irons, hitting it close because the putting is so difficult. I think that's also why, approach numbers are very key here. So yeah, in this range, I guess I'd be trying to look for guys that have been maybe coming in with decent form. I don't know. I really don't have a ton of interest. There's Sung Jae and Ben On, I think, will get some love. But like anyone in here that has course history it's not good course history. Form coming in isn't great. Like Scott Piercy would be interesting, but he's so streaky. I can't really go there. So I don't know, man. I honestly might. This range probably gets a decent amount of ownership. So maybe if I faded, that's a decent leverage spot. I don't know.
I also like Adam Hadwin quite a bit. I think he's another guy just in my overall model who's slightly underpriced at 8,500. And in fact, I pulled the trigger betting him as well at 58-1. So I want to throw that out there too. His irons seem to have been coming around a little better in his last 20 rounds compared to how they've been on the season. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're here to stay, but it was nice to see, considering he popped in my overall model when I went to see how things were going. It was nice to see that at this particular course. So yeah, I like Adam Hadwin as well. But like you said, below him, I could see myself playing Ben An in the lower eights, but I won't have much for Telly. Maybe Sung Jae's forgotten about by now when we were all on him in the swing season. I don't know.
Those are the first names I heard. Like immediately when pricing came out was Sung Jae, Ben On. But it just, and what's funny too, like full transparency, like my model, like when you use the full season stats and like use approach and birdie or better and stuff like that, like the 8K range has got a high percentage, a high percentile for each one, but it's relative to the field again. And then when I start breaking it down with the extended approach, that's where I can kind of see, hey, these guys may not have the upside that I would want. Maybe save the salary, spend up or go down, whatever you need to do. But there's literally, if I don't play anyone here, there's really no one I'm afraid of crushing me. Like even Norn's coming in with good form, but if we look at his numbers, it's fluky. Less than a quarter of his shots are inside of 18 feet. That's not very good. He lost 3.5 strokes on approach last week, only gained 2.5. Like it's a range I think that people might get trapped in. Personally, that's how I'm viewing it. I think there's guys that'll get just fit into lineups based on the pricing. And I think I just am going to skip this. Yep,
that's fair. I'll probably dabble in Glover and Hadwin for sure, and maybe some sprinkles of Ben An.
I can get behind Glover. That's probably more of a personal vendetta thing.
For sure. It's been ugly in past playing Glover. Yes. It hurts more often than it doesn't.
He'd be the one that would probably sting if he did win. I would be like, missed that one. He gets one win every 2 years, so missed that one.
I would not be mad if it was this week.
Good luck to you, buddy. All right, let's hit the 7K range. We'll hit the high 7K range. It's a lot more packed than it was last week. Starting off, we'll say, 7,900, 7,800. Like right in that range there, I see guys like Streelman that I feel like is a good fit on this golf course. He's only played here once in like the last 6 years, and he barely made the cut and finished DFL. But man, how quickly we forget about a guy that was 9K a month ago, and just hasn't had any top finishes. Went over to the British Open, which he has historically done terrible at, and it was last minute and all that stuff. But I like him quite a bit coming back here. He's the kind of ball striker you would want. I think going down the list, I guess guys that have the most upside for me is looking at like Abraham Answer at 7,700, Kyle Stanley right there, and then Russell Knox at 7,500. He's probably the highest rated guy in the high 7K range for me. And it makes sense too, because I'm weighting approach so heavily. This is a golf course that should allow him to hit a lot of irons. Finished 28th here 2 years ago. So any strong thoughts in this high 7K range for you?
Yep, I skipped everybody at the one, so kind of like Glover. The one who would sting a little bit would be if Straka continued to play out of his mind. I have him highlighted. I don't know what I'm going to do with him yet. I guess it'll depend on projected ownership. But the three I like the most were Stanley, Answer, and Redmond. So
yeah,
of those three, I have them. They all grade out pretty similar to me. In fact, I think it'd go Answer, Redmond, Stanley, just for how I threw everything together. But Answer's approach numbers, like you said, are a concern. He does a lot of damage off the tee, and that will be nullified this week. So I have to figure out exactly how much I think that's going to affect him. But just overall talent, I think.
Yeah, that's
in this range, he's one of the better golfers. So
yeah,
can that overcome the irons at this type of course? I don't know. I'll dig further into it, but I like Redmond quite a bit here at 7,600. So
yeah, definitely.
Those would be the three I'm sticking to, with maybe some Sep salted sprinkled in there.
I like it. Let me look at. Did Henley have a decent? Was it the John Deere? Because he didn't qualify for the Open, right?
No, he popped up. It might have been John Deere. I really did not pay attention to the John Deere.
It was a John Deere. Yeah, he finished second.
Waking up and watching the Scottish Open and then going back to bed.
Yeah, of course. He's interesting just from a longer term approach, shorter term approach. 26% of his shots inside 12 feet. We haven't seen him in 3 weeks, so it's a little bit scary, kind of plugging guys in. I mean, but what are the guys going to be doing when they go home? Rest, and then they're going to be practicing. So it's not like they're going to lose it in a couple weeks. They're still playing and practicing.
Right.
But yeah, Russell Henley there at 7,800. I kind of missed him, but he gained. Where did it go?
His last 16 rounds have been pretty fire.
Yeah,
he's been doing it against weaker fields, but the fact that he's finally doing it, like
he had been.
He should be at the top of those. Like coming around to form, he should be at the top of the fields he's been playing in.
Well, he was one guy that kind of in that same long category where I was playing him based on these approach numbers. He was losing strokes putting. I think for the stretch that I played him, he had lost 1 stroke, 4 strokes, 2 strokes, 3 strokes putting in those events. And if you look through his numbers, if I pull it back up, he has nearly a quarter of his shots inside of 12 feet, over 50% of his shots inside of 24 feet. He was a guy that was, off the charts for me. And he was, 6,900, 7K. Like, those are the kind of upside plays that I was looking for, like Long last week, that with those irons, and he just makes some putts, and he's going to finish near the top of a leaderboard somewhere. And he ended up doing at the John Deere. He gained 7.5 strokes on approach. He gained 4 strokes putting, finished second. So yeah, I think he is in play. I do like him again this week.
Yeah.
Low sevens. So you're skipping kind of the high sevens, or at least you say you only picked out a couple in there. In the low sevens, there's certainly some guys I like quite a bit. I'll let you lead off in this range. Any, I don't even want to say any strong pulls, at least for me, man. I like quite a bit down here, or a handful.
I think... So in this range, it'll be where I'm probably sprinkling these guys. I don't think any of these guys will be part of any sort of core that I build this week, but I will definitely be sprinkling in to the core. Bud Cauley, I'll hop back on some Wyndham Clark, although, again, I don't know. A lot of this down here is just trying to get some overall talent guys that I rate higher than other golfers here, not necessarily course fit. So I'll sprinkle in a Clark, McCarthy, and Berger would be the ones from this lower range that I'll try to focus in on. I know Roger Sloan has been popping with the irons in these alt events that he's been playing.
He's one.
I don't know. Those are probably the ones just overall, and hopefully no one else wants to play them because there's not exactly a lot of indicators of recent that point to playing those guys. So I'll continue to bash my head with Berger, I guess, in his averageness.
He had a couple decent showings. Was that?
It's been relatively average all year, but I don't know. It's weird. Wonder if something's wrong, or I don't know. He's just back to being a complete average golfer.
Any thoughts on Merritt after his last two alt field events? Kind of pretty strong.
No, Merritt's funny from last week, but I don't know. No, nothing really stood out for
we kind of
Troy this week.
Yeah, I guess we kind of talked about that. Me and Sky did a tutorial video on these stats, and he was near the top of the strokes gain, like the number of shots that he gained strokes on approach, but he was also the very worst lost. Like, he's had some bad ones. So I guess to that point, with irons being critical, yeah, he might have the upside, but they weren't really steady. They were still pretty bad, which probably shows why, if you look at his last, 6 events, he's gone miscut, 7th, missed cut, 2nd. So probably goes there. There's a couple guys I like here. I'm curious to hear kind of the buzz around Malnati. He's a guy that we just saw 8K not too long ago. Irons, from what I can tell, aren't that far off. I mean, they're still pretty solid. I'm okay going back there. Does he have any course history? Yeah, it's not bad. 42nd, 50th, 24th. So my favorite is going to be Sloan, man. Again, he's somewhat unproven, I guess, but just looking through his numbers, 70 to 100, he's kind of in line with Connors as far as like those approach numbers, but he's not bad putter. Like,
he's been giving himself a lot of opportunity these last.
Yeah, I don't know. He gained 2.5 strokes at the Rocket Mortgage, 2 strokes at the 3M Open, and 4 strokes at the John Deere. Like, the irons have been steady, and he's actually a decent putter, gaining 2-3 strokes putting those rounds or those events. So yeah, I like him a lot. I wish he was back down to that $6,500 mark, but again, in this field, him and Malnati right there, I think are totally fine as salary savers. Bud Colley, I'm with you there. He's one of the highest ratings. He is the highest rating down in this low 7K range for me. And then Charlie Hoffman, I'm still undecided. The guy's just torched me this year. What was his last event? Was it the John Deere? Or did he skip that event? I'm going to see what his extended approach numbers look like.
Yeah, the problem
still good, man. Dang. He's gonna take my money again.
Oh yeah.
I'll add him to the list. I'm excited to lose money on Charlie Hoffman once more. If you guys don't want to lose money or win a lot of money, it's undecided at this point. You can avoid him, but I mean, his irons still stay good, and he just can't putt. So eventually, that's for a guy that's really not a bad putter longer term. It's hard for me to skip that. I guess that'd be kind of like your Lucas Glover in a way.
Yeah. I mean, down here, I typically lean. It's almost the opposite. I'll lean a little more on a longer term, just because that's, I feel more confident, and that's what a golfer is. So I'm trying not to guess peaks and valleys of some of these cheaper guys, but it gets kind of ugly as usual very quickly in fields like this for me, where I will not have, I don't think, a hard position on anybody down here.
That's fair. I mean, you really shouldn't. I mean, there's
you really,
it's golf. But I mean, they're never really underpriced values.
Completely less than like 10 to 12% owned. Like, these guys are literally just, I don't know who the hell is going to do anything down here, so I'm going to just plug them into like 6 different lineups and hope one of them does well, and that lineup is the one at the top, hunting. So I don't know.
I can get it. Let's hit this last range, I guess, the 6K range. I mean, I really only have a couple guys that I'm really eyeballing down here. My favorite's going to be Svensson. I'm going to go back to that well. I mean, irons have stayed good. We've talked about his ball striking numbers have been off the charts. And he finally, I mean, he was on a stretch of missed cuts for a while. Then he finally made the cut at the 3M Open. Again, it's a weaker field event, finished 15th. And he lost 5 strokes putting and finished 15th. Then he went to the John Deere, same ball striking numbers. Not as good, but nearly identical. Didn't lose strokes putting. Didn't lose a full stroke putting, I should say. Finished 18th. So, at his price, that would be one guy that I like going back to. Lebioda, I have a little bit of interest in. I mean, he had one bad showing last week. I'm not off of that. And then the other 2 guys that are near the top of the range. So Sean Stephanie is near the top of my list, at least in my model. Another guy that he's so streaky. He's 6K for a reason, so tread lightly there, but I think he is a decent salary saver. And then Sam Ryder, I think I'm just too high on Sam Ryder for the majority of the year. I feel like he has the irons that can contend in this event. So I'll be going to some Sam Ryder this week. I don't know if you have any thoughts on like Taylor Gooch. We kind of talked about his extended approach numbers for the season being so good, or any other thoughts in this range.
So on Gooch, I did bet him at 200 to 1. So I think he's underpriced in the outright market, which typically then leads you to be underpriced in DraftKings since they correlate pretty heavily. So I'll sprinkle him in at 6,700 for sure. The 2, I guess, potential huge upside plays. And I saw Charlie Danielson was already mentioned on Twitter. Sky has been freaking out about him for the last week and a half. But the irons are just dialed in. Like if you look at what he's done over the 12 laser rounds we have, I mean, he is just putting a large majority of shots inside of 18 feet, 12. Like he is having a lot of birdie putts. So, and at 6,100 at a course that's going to be iron heavy, I guess that's a guy. And then another one who I have quite literally looked into nothing more than these approach numbers for Nicholas Lindheim at dead minimum 6K. I don't know. We have 231 shots for him. He's put 7.5% of them inside of 6 feet. He's put 20% inside 12, and then after that, it's bad. So he's either literally pin seeking or missing a green, it seems like. So that is complete and utter upside at a dead minimum 6K. If you have a big position on, a Simpson or a Morikawa, and you want to squeeze them together with, I don't know, a Casey or Hovland or whoever up there. If you really want to play, pure upside, I mean, I wouldn't play him in more than like 2 to 3% of your lineups. But yeah, I guess if you're really, I never scrape the bottom of the barrel. Like I literally never play anybody that low. Like that's just not me. But I think, I don't know, if you're making 150 lineups, could not hurt. I don't know, put them in like 4.
Yeah.
You'll be the only one who uses them. Maybe not Danielson since I've seen his name brought up, but like I said, Lindheim, it's weird. It's either within 12 feet or it's missing the green.
Yeah, what's funny with Danielson, like, it definitely has some interest. His irons have been good. He's been sporadic, I think, through the season, like the few events he's played. Obviously, he kind of popped up at the U.S. Open, but again, he's played a decent number of PGA Tour events. This year, U.S. Open 3M, but I mean, like the events he's played in, it's been a little bit sporadic. The 7.4 gain last at the 3M Open. What did he do last week? Do you know?
I don't know where he finished.
But yeah, I still don't think, like you talk about how good the procs numbers are, and they are really good. I still don't think he gets a ton of ownership. I don't think he's like some obvious salary saver to most people. So I wouldn't
know. At 6,100, even if he was propped up on Twitter all week, PGA Twitter is only some small sliver of the 150,000 entries in your $5. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
The masses are not playing Charlie Danielson. That's for sure. He was T7 last week, T15 at 3M. Oh, those are his best performances. Sorry, I pulled up his official War Golf ranking page, but
yeah, I'm just saying, like, these guys, like, the numbers look good, but he's so cheap. Most people aren't going to pay down here anyways. So don't overthink it and like, oh wow, his numbers look off the charts. Maybe he's too good to be true. You know, it's still undecided on how good he's going to be, but he's not going to be like crazy popular off of a couple showings.
And you shouldn't be like they're. At the same time, they're priced down here for a reason.
It's the same with Long and Henley.
These guys are going to go off. In fact, like Lindheim's probably more going to miss the cut. But if you want to get weird, I guess those would be the two that I would take a shot on if you really wanted to scrape the bottom of the barrel. Like I said, Taylor Gooch is probably my obviously safer upper 6K type guy that I'd feel comfortable playing. Yeah, I'm probably going to keep it to the low 7K range when I'm filling in salary on my lineups this week.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, I think that'll do it for me, man. I think it's pretty cut and dry. You could probably find some sleepers down here, but none that really just jump off. So I think that'll about do it, man. I appreciate everyone for tuning in to the Fantasy Golf Bag podcast. You can find our listener league in the link in the description of this video or podcast, whether you're watching on YouTube or on iTunes, Spotify. Give us a like, give us a rating and a review. It always helps us out. And of course, you can find all of our stats, the extended approach and our main rolling stats and stat model at fantasygolfbag.com. Good luck in your contest this week, and we will see you later this week for the live stream Wednesday night on Twitch, twitch.tv/Redkacheek. See you later, guys. Bye.